Rachel, I think you've got the first question from our listeners there.
Yeah, anonymous questioner this week asks, with Dominic Raab standing down, what are the panellists' prediction for the next general elections Portillo moment?
I love this question because there's been so many stories about senior Conservative figures that could lose their seats in the next election. Boris Johnson was another obvious one. He's obviously decided not to put that to his voters in Uxbridge and South Ruislip and resign early. Ben, you've been actually looking at the new constituency boundaries that are going to be in place for the next election. Have any big names popped up to you who might be precarious in their seats?
Oh, hello. Thanks for having me as well. Loads. There's lots of people. This is the situation where we are. The Conservatives are being, caned nationally. So they're going to suffer losses in excess of maybe 150, 200 seats. That's a lot of people going. And a lot of them, well, one of them would have been Boris Johnson in Uxbridge and South Ruislip, but he's left a little bit prematurely, so good for him. But Portillo moment, there's a lot of them. 2010, it was meant to be, were you still up for balls? That was David Cameron's Lord Ashcroft strategy. It never really materialised, did it? Until 5 years later, a nice, I think, illustration of Labour's perceived competence on the economy. They were level pegging with the Tories in 2010 on the economy, and in 2015 they were 15 to 20 points behind. So what better way to illustrate it than your own shadow chancellor losing? And that was the 2015 result for Ed Balls.
Yeah, I just remember that night being in our old office, and George Eaton, who was our then political editor, just turned to us and went, "This is the man who is going to be Chancellor." Now I think he's about to start a podcast with George Osborne. So, it's either How the Mighty Have Fallen or
or the Losers Go On podcast. But thinking more close to home for next year or as late as January 2025, like I say, the Tories are expected to lose between 150 and 200 seats. On current numbers, it could change, absolutely. But the people at risk, you do have Ian Duncan-Smith, Theresa Villiers, those two in London. You have, of course, Dominic Raab, as, of course, the question. Oh, no, he's standing down. No, of course he's standing down. The Lib Dems would probably pick that up as well, wouldn't they?
The anonymous questionnaer is judging you for that.
Yeah, for ignoring the anonymous
questioner.
Who's the anonymous questioner? Is it in-house? I think the one that is, I suppose, 50-50, but on a bit of a knife edge, and it really would be, perhaps, it would put in a spanner in the works of some Tory members, is Portsmouth North, Penny Mordant. Were you still up for Penny? Because she's the one who a number of Tory members thinks, she's waiting to succeed Rishi when Rishi falls on his sword, aren't they? She's waiting for that.
Yeah.
But Portsmouth is swinging in a way that is mostly anti-Tory in her seat, which is the northern bit of Portsmouth, obviously. Her party did get a bit caned by the Liberals, by Labour, by Independents. The vote is going a bit everywhere. So, to be honest with you, on present numbers, she's in trouble. But her capacity to hold on against 2017, when Labour surged in Portsmouth, is actually quite commendable, really. So I think maybe I don't want to say she has a personal vote, but in general elections, personal votes can be as high as 1,000 to 2,000 votes, which isn't much, but my goodness me, that'll save you the seat if it's a tight fight. And right now we have Portsmouth North modelled. If you go to Britain Predicts, give it a Google, listeners and readers, go to Britain Predicts, and you'll find right now, as of recording, Labour is on 42% there, Conservative 38%. And I dare say, and that's national numbers, that's national polling. If you assume Penny has a majority of 2,000 votes, that's like 5 or 6% extra for her, so she could hold on. But we are still up for Penny. I think on present numbers is the one we definitely need to watch. Yeah,
I think I'd kind of broadly agree with Ben that Penny's thinking it from just a purely political perspective. For example, Penny made sure that she led the kind of vote to go to vote for the Boris Johnson privileges report. So she's kind of separated herself from some figures in her party. She obviously would like to lead in the future. So she's obviously very ambitious. So there's a clear comparison with Portillo in that way, that it kind of is a very similar moment if she does lose the seat. But also I think she's like the biggest threat to Keir Starmer after the next election. She's quite popular with Labour voters, I think. She she would be quite a challenge to him, and perhaps in a way some others wouldn't be. So if I were Morgan McSweeney, Labour's campaign director, I would be throwing everything at trying to make sure that Penny Mordant didn't get to stay in office. The other kind of obvious one to me is Michael Gove, because Michael Gove's not standing down in the what it's
Surrey seat.
It's Surrey Heath at the moment, but I can't recall what the constituency is going to be called in the future. But he's been such a big figure in the last 13 years, that seeing Michael Gove potentially lose his seat would be quite dramatic, I think.
Yeah, and again, parallels with Portillo in the sense that he is sort of the leader that never was as well.
Yeah, he wrote a book about Michael Portillo, actually, Michael Gove, yeah.
Yeah, so Surrey Heath is obviously changing, as is the whole of Surrey. Long story short, for those who aren't paying attention to the boundary changes, please do pay attention to them, because it means 10 more seats in England, a lot less in Wales and Scotland, and it's basically just a more equitable distribution, because Wales and Scotland were overrepresented because they didn't have devolved parliaments. Well, they have for the past 20 years, so the correction needs to be happening. So it just means more seats in England, and most of them are coming in the southeast, because the southeast is a lot more built up than it used to be. And what it means is smaller Surrey seats, a lot more urban Surrey seats, a lot more winnable for a party other than the Conservatives in Surrey. So the Lib Dems, right now, actually, we have them on course to at least pick up 2 seats in Surrey, Esher and Walton and Guildford, but that's the current old boundaries. We expect them to do a lot better elsewhere. And Surrey Heath, old boundaries, don't have the numbers for the new ones just yet. You do see the Lib Dems surging by quite a sizable margin. It doesn't take much. At the moment, you have the Tory, Michael Gove's majority, notional majority, down from 50-60%. I think it was 60-something percent there. Now it's down to 39%, which is a big drop. And you have the combined share for the Lib Dems and Labour, 47% for the Lib Dems and Labour there. That's, when Lib Dems run campaigns, they run very militaristic, Prussian almost, military campaigns, and squeezing the vote, tactical voting, getting the right people out. And look, if you want to talk people at risk, Michael Gove is definitely one of them. It's just on my numbers, because Britain Predicts doesn't account for tactical voting. Don't see it yet, but definitely once more one to watch. Another one as well, I completely forgot him, Ben Wallace.
Of course. I was going to ask
very
about him.
admirable Defence Secretary, but his seat is being carved up, because Lancaster used to be Lancaster and a lot of a strip along the way to Blackpool. Now it's become its own more Lancaster and Weir seat. And long story short, Ben Wallace's seat is no longer in existence. He needs to go find somewhere else. Lancaster might be the safe bet, but it's currently a Labour seat. No, he needs to go somewhere else, really. He needs to find something else. And, well, we don't know if he will.
Interesting. What do you reckon, Anoosh?
Well, one I think some of our listeners might relish, and actually, in terms of the boundary changes, he is running in a slightly different seat. So, Ben, you'll know more about the makeup, is Jacob Rees-Mogg. Now, I don't want to elevate him to Portillo status, but, he has been a sort of totemic figure in the Conservative Party in recent years, given his Brexiteer and sort of Boris Johnson champion status. I was down in his constituency, actually, recently, and it looks like the constituency North East Somerset, as it is now, would be taken by Labour in a next general election. And this is Somerset. This is a Tory county. Most of the MPs in that seat, aside from in Bath and Bristol, are Conservatives. Somerton and Frome, of course, we're going to have a by-election there, so we'll see what happens there. But I think that would be something that some of our listeners might relish seeing if Rees-Mogg loses his seat. But I'm not sure, because he's now running for a seat with a slightly different makeup. So, Ben, maybe, I know we don't have the sort of full numbers yet, but maybe you could give us your thoughts on that.
We've all been to Bristol once or twice. Bristol is growing quite substantially. It used to be Bristol, and then the towns of Kingswood and Filton and Bradley Stoke. Pretty much now I don't want to say they've merged. I don't want to say they've become become one, but they are increasingly growing, and it's spreading. And what it is it's sort of spreading to where Rees-Mogg's seat is or was, and does include a slight part of. So the progressive urbanisation of around Bristol is helping Labour. So once upon a time, places like Kingswood, Filton and Bradley Stoke, the seats David Cameron's Tories took off Labour in 2010, they're becoming a lot more Labour, a lot more, notionally Labour, I suppose. And a bit of that also has gone into Rees-Mogg's old seat, but also his new one as well, which just sort of cuts it down the middle because there's more people living there. On current numbers, though, it does say Labour's winning it. But this is the thing, in council elections, Labour doesn't really have much of a presence here in the surrounds of Bath. So this is where I think my modelling, there's a severe limit to it, which is we don't factor for tactical voting. We don't factor for the fact that right now, Labour's up 13 points nationally. So you should expect them to be up 13 points everywhere else. It doesn't work like that. In places where the Lib Dems have council strength, like in Harrogate and Knaresborough, for instance, where I'm from, Lib Dems have always been the second place party to the Tories, or sometimes the first. But the national numbers imply Labour coming second there, which is not going to happen. We know that. And I get the impression we would see the same in North East Somerset, because when local votes are counted, the local votes don't go for Labour, the opposition to the Tories. They go for the Lib Dems. And the Lib Dems swept here last year, and I think, was it this year as well? Yeah, they have a strength that doesn't get measured in the national numbers. But yes, Rees-Mogg, definitely in trouble. We used to look for the Mogster. Yeah, add it to the list.
Thanks so much for watching. We'd love to know what you think. Please make sure you leave your comments below. And if you enjoyed watching this podcast, you can watch more of our videos on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to like and subscribe.